a Torah Anytime original series.
Let's ask one of Judaism's oldest questions, a question that nobody really asks out loud, but everyone is thinking. If people really believe in Hashem, then why do they sin? If people really believe in Gehenna, why do they sin? If people really believe that Hashem is watching their every single move, then why do people sometimes not follow Hashem's words? Think about it. If someone told you, touch this stove and you will immediately get third-degree burns, you're not going to touch the stove because you're not an idiot. So if people believe there's a creator watching and punishes people who do averos, then why do we still sin? The answer is actually something pretty simple. The answer is that your brain and your heart are not always on the same team. And just because you know something in your brain does not at all automatically mean that you know it in your heart. Let me give you an example. You're watching a play. You know the play is fake. The actors are pretending. The sad violin music is literally designed by a sound engineer to manipulate your emotions. You know all of this, and yet the actor dies and you're crying. Why? Because your brain knows it's fake, but your heart thinks it's real. Your brain understands reality, but your heart reacts to the story that it's experiencing in front of it. I'll give you another example. You know, a roller coaster is safe. Thousands of engineers designed it, millions of people ride it every year. Statistically, it is one of the safest things you can do. Your brain knows this. But the second the car starts climbing, your heart is like, okay, this is a terrible idea. And your palms start sweating and your stomach drops and you start questioning every life decision that led you to that moment. Why? Because your brain understands the statistics, but your heart doesn't. Your heart feels like you're about to die. Or take speaking in public. Speaking in front of 1,000 people is terrifying. But speaking in front of a camera, even knowing that 1,000 people are watching live, feels completely different. Because your brain knows the number, but your heart doesn't feel the crowd. It's the same reason why you can listen to a shir once and then move on and you'll never listen to it again, but you can listen to a song 10 million times because a shir is processed by the mind, but a song hits the heart, and the brain and the heart do not operate in the same way. And that right there might be the secret to understanding sin. A person can know that Hashem exists. A person can know right from wrong. A person can even know that actions have consequences. But in the moment, their heart is responding to a completely different story. The temptation is in front of them feels real. The pleasure feels immediate. The consequences feel distant and abstract. Your brain can understand the repercussions of sin. Your brain can process ideas like judgment and accountability, and even to a certain extent, Gehenna. But your heart isn't experiencing those things right now. To the heart, those ideas can feel distant, theoretical, like trivia. It's almost like Pluto. You believe Pluto exists. You've seen pictures of it. You learned about it in school, but it means absolutely nothing to your day-to-day life. You don't wake up in the morning thinking, wow, Pluto, because it's just so far away that it doesn't feel real. And sometimes belief in consequences can be a little bit like that. The brain says, yes, this is wrong. Yes, this matters. But the heart is focused on what it feels right now. And that's what the Yetzer Hara is stepping in and starts whispering to the heart that relax, it's not such a big deal. Just this once, you'll fix it later. Everyone does it. And for a moment, the heart believes that story, even though the brain knows a lot better. That is the root cause of most sin, the disconnect between the brain and the heart. That is why many of the great thinkers of Judaism explain that the real struggle in Emunah isn't that people don't believe. It's the fact that that belief often stays in the brain and never fully reaches the heart. It reminds me of a time that I had to pull over to the side of the road, and in front of me was a huge gasoline tanker truck. And the driver looked like he was in trouble. So I walked over and I asked him, and I said, well, what's going on? He said, I ran out of gas. I said, what do you mean you ran out of gas? You're literally driving a gas tanker. Don't you have like 10,000 gallons sitting right behind you? Why can't you just pour some of your truck's gas into your tank? So the driver shook his head and he said, yeah, I've got plenty of gas back there. The problem is that I don't have the right pump to get it into my tank. I deliver gas to gas stations with these big industrial hoses, but my truck needs a small pump and I don't have one. Isn't that amazing when you think about it? Here's a man sitting on top of 10,000 gallons of gasoline, and he's still stuck on the side of the road with an empty tank. But in a way, that's exactly what happens to many of us spiritually. We have so much knowledge and so many shiurim and so many books and svarim and podcasts. We know the ideas, we know the information, the tanker behind us is full, but sometimes we're still sitting on the side of the road out of gas because we simply do not have a way of bridging the gap between the oil tanker and the gas tank, between what we know in our minds and what actually fuels our hearts. So the question is, how do you actually bridge that gap? How do you take something you believe in, your head, and you turn it into something that your heart actually feels? The answer is simple. You have to speak to the heart in its own language. The heart does not really care about proofs or arguments. It doesn't move for logic. The heart moves for experience, for story, for emotion, for repetition, for moments that grab it and don't let it go. It responds to sound and to song and to curiosity, to things that feel alive and real in the moment. And that is exactly what the Seder is. Because once a year, Judaism basically changes form. It stops being just a system of rules and becomes an experience. Think about it. Most of Judaism is structured, it's predictable. Make a bracha, eat, continue your day. Clear, defined, controlled. And then suddenly, Seder night, we're leaning, we're dipping, we hide matzah like it's some sort of ancient treasure hunt. We spill wine on purpose. We're singing instead of just speaking. We ask questions instead of giving answers. It's structured, but it feels almost like controlled chaos. If someone walked in from outside, from outer space, they'd probably say, like, this is a religion, or is this some sort of performance? This is the religion of intellect, as you claim? But that's exactly the point. Because the Seder is not trying to win an argument with your brain. It's trying to break through to your heart. The heart doesn't change from information, it changes from experience, from story, emotion, and repetition and immersion. That is the deeper design of the Seder. It's not just speaking to your mind, it's grabbing your attention, and it's pulling you in and saying, this isn't a story you're studying. This is a story that you're in. And once the heart is in, everything else follows. And that is exactly what we are trying to accomplish with the Haggadah and all its theatrics, to bridge the gap between brain and heart. We don't call it a sipur, we call it a Haggadah. The word Haggadah also carries the idea of binding. Perhaps the deeper point is meant to bind the mind to the heart, to connect what we know with what we feel. Because information can sit in your mind for a lifetime and change nothing. But the moment it binds to your heart, it stops being something you know and it starts being something that you are. And that's the power of the Haggadah, not to inform you, but to transform you, to take a story from 3,000 years ago and make it beat inside of you tonight. Because when the mind and heart finally lock in together, that's not inspiration, it becomes identity.